Fire Chief Jim Jessop, J-E-S-S-O-P. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending. As you all know, shortly after 1:30 afternoon on Thursday, Toronto Fire Services responded to the report of a fire at these two buildings, and we have been on site 24 hours a day since then, actively fighting the fire. The first thing I want to do is acknowledge and thank all of the displaced residents for their patience, their resilience, and their understanding. I can't imagine what it would be like to be dislocated and moved from your home in the middle of the night and put up in a hotel or be staying with family and friends, especially during this time of year. So I do want to absolutely acknowledge that and thank them for that because it is tough. So as of today, literally an hour ago, I was up on the roof with our senior command team again, and we have been throughout the building, and the fire continues to burn. So the fire is not extinguished yet, and in fact, what I did today was I brought a sample. I want to show you what exactly is burning and try to help you and the occupants and the residents understand why this has become such a challenge. This is the material, which is combustible particle board that was placed between an expansion joint. That is causing us the problem. And access to getting to this is next to impossible for our crews, and we have been trying everything. And I want to emphasize, we are the largest fire service in the country with more high-rises than any other city in North America other than New York. So we have the best of the best that are dealing with this. We also today have a team of multidisciplinary engineers from Toronto Fire Service, Toronto Building, and the building's owners all working together to try to come up with other ideas on how we can, as fast as possible, quickly extinguish this fire. But this is the problem that we are talking about. And if you can imagine a cigar burning slowly up and up without visible flames, this is what my staff have been dealing with since Thursday afternoon at 1:30, with no way to access it except very manual labor ways and very laborious ways. So we will continue our efforts. They have not stopped at all. And as I said, we have a team of engineers literally right now working on additional plans. Second thing Toronto Fire will comment on is the investigation into the origin, cause, and circumstances of this fire continues. So I will not be commenting on anything related to that at all. That is undergoing right now with the Toronto Fire Service Investigations Division and the Toronto Police Service. Finally, what I want to also state is the Toronto Fire Service engineers and inspectors and the Toronto Building engineers and inspectors concurrently right now are already working on and drafting plans on what it looks like when we extinguish this fire and how do we get people back as quickly as possible while doing it safely. So all of that work is being done at the same time while we continue to fight this fire. And that work will continue so that the minute this is out and Toronto Fire Service declares it is safe to return, any additional orders, remedial work, safety work, all of those plans will be in place so there is no delay. Again, I want to thank the residents for their patience. I want to, commend them for that. I can't imagine being displaced. And more importantly as well, I want to thank all of the first responders that have been here 24 hours a day since it started. Our firefighters have not stopped, and they will not stop until this is concluded. So I'm going to introduce the Executive Director of Toronto Emergency Management, Joanna Bevan, and after that we'll take any questions. Joanna.
Thank you, Chief. Just an update on the amount of households that we're helping. Right now we're at 141 households that are being supported by Canadian Red Cross. This represents 293 individuals, and that also represents 117 hotel rooms. We have the emergency supports that we have been giving these residents. We have extended them till Thursday. We look at this on a daily basis, working very closely with Toronto Fire Services and our partners to continue to assess the situation and the needs. What this includes is the hotel, food, basic hygiene supplies, and some transportation expenses provided by the Canadian Red Cross as per our agreement with Canadian Red Cross. Again, we continue to look at this on a case-by-case basis. We also encourage the residents to please get in touch with your insurance companies and look at what your coverage is, and also to seek accommodation where they can at family and friends. Any further questions on that?
Chief, is there any kind of a precedent for a fire like this? You said last week was one of the toughest you guys have had to fight in years. Where does that affect? I mean, what is it that is so unique about this? Have you seen one quite like this?
So in my 30 years, no, and I've obviously been meeting with our senior operations commanders that have been with Toronto Fire Service near 40 years. They have never seen something as complex as this. And again, the challenge is this is the combustible material. We can't access it. You're dealing with two buildings, and this was put in between an expansion joint. So we are coming up with additional strategies and plans. Again, we were up on the roof this morning, and there was visible smoke still coming out. And you're talking after 4 days of our staff continuously fighting this fire, literally both exteriorly from the roof and into units right now on the interior side. So that is the biggest challenge right now for Toronto Fire. It spans, the length, and we're trying to get access right now, and that's the issue.
How toxic is this material? I mean, the thing is, you mentioned that there was carbon monoxide originally that you were contending with, and that's why residents were asked to leave. How toxic is this if this has been burning now for 4 days, as you say?
So toxic, we don't test that. I will speak to carbon monoxide only because I don't know exactly what types of resins or anything in this. The reason I authorized the complete evacuation of these two buildings was based on the fact that despite our efforts, we could not get the fire under control, and the levels of carbon monoxide, which is a off-gassing of incomplete combustion. So whether it's this material, whether it's wood, whether it's anything, if you don't have enough oxygen feeding the fire, one of the byproducts is carbon monoxide. So that was the reason I ultimately authorized the request of the incident commander. So that's the problem right now. Is it was the CO levels at the time. As I said, we can't access this easily at all. We have been trying for 4 days, and we will continue to try. And that is why we have, as I said, a multidisciplinary team of engineers right now coming up with other ideas.
You also mentioned 24 hours after you put it out.
What material is blocking you? Is it brick?
It's concrete.
Okay, you had mentioned that it would be 24 hours after you put the fire out before residents would be able to return to their homes. Is that still the case, or are you going to have to do some testing for whatever other materials that could be hazardous to them, not just the carbon monoxide?
No, great question. So what I said was a minimum of 24 hours before Toronto Fire Service would permit occupancy again. We will deal with the fire issue. Toronto Building, as I said, their team, we have been working all weekend with the Toronto Building Department proactively. They are on site right now looking at what they may need requiring, and then it will be up to the building owners on other issues that you may mention that they will have to deal with. But we will only speak and we will only deal with the Fire Protection and Prevention Act and making sure the building is fire safe. Toronto Building, as I said, they have engineers and inspectors on site right now proactively looking, and then the owners of these buildings will deal with the other matters.
So no timelines still?
Unfortunately, there is no timelines. There is no timelines.
So Chief, I'm just trying to understand. I mean, the fire that's now been burning into the 5th day, you can't access it. I mean, obviously you're looking for solutions on how to even get eyes on it, but I mean, if this just continues to burn, what else can happen? Can it continue spreading through? I'm just trying to figure out what kind of damage is from this. And are you going to get to the point where you may have to demolish part of the building to get it?
So no, that has not even been discussed. That has not been contemplated or even thought of. Again, the challenge that we have is this product is between two buildings. And it is extremely difficult for us to access. We are doing our best. There is the very frustrating thing for our staff is it is not generating flames. As I said, think of a cigar that is slowly burning. And so it is just creeping up up and spreading. So at this point, our thermal imaging cameras are not even picking up heat signatures. So at this point, and again, that will be determined.
All right, we're
by
listening to Toronto Fire Chief Jim Jessup. Give us an update on that blaze that broke out in those two connected high-rises in Thorncliffe Park on Thursday. Over 400 units evacuated, no injuries, and we don't know the cause yet, but they still don't know when residents will be able to return because they still have some areas that are still smoldering, and it's the insulation between the buildings, between the walls, that the chief says is very difficult to reach. Let's bring in CTV's Janice Golding. You've been following this story, and you've been listening to that news conference. You've got more. Janice.
Hi, yes, Nathan. We've been listening to the Fire Chief Jim Jessop as well as someone from Toronto Emergency Services, and they tell us that they have been trying to fight this fire for 4 days straight now. It is very, very complex. They said that they were on the roof today. There are still smoke rising from the expansion joint between the two buildings. And essentially what the chief says is that there is insulation or combustible material that's on fire, similar to a cigar. It's not completely combusting, so you're not seeing visible flames, but it is causing a significant amount of carbon monoxide. The fire is not out. He says they don't have a timeline as to when it will be out, in fact. He says they have a number of engineers here from both Toronto Fire and all other multidisciplinary engineers here trying to figure out how to deal with this. But he says in his 30 years that he has been battling fires, he's never seen anything this complex. Other people on unit command have been here working for fire for 40 years, and they don't know how to deal with this. They say they're fighting through concrete. It's also in between the expansion joint, and it's extremely difficult to access apart from pouring water down from the roof. So at this point, they say they do not know when anyone is going to be able to go home. At this point, they say also that there are a number of people who have been displaced. At this point, 141 households, 293 individuals are staying in 117 hotel rooms that are being provided by the Red Cross. They're being provided with food and shelter, but they say they don't know when they're going to be able to go home. They don't know what kind of toxins may have been released into the air either. They have just measured for carbon monoxide at this point, but they say this is a very, very difficult fire to combat at this point, and they just do not know when they're going to have it out. That's it from us here. Now back to you, Nathan and Michelle.
Thank you, Janice.